Hello, my name is Cosette Corcatelli, and today I'm doing a presentation on what is healthy sexuality and for my human sexuality block. My idea of healthy sexuality is a pure and sacred and special biological function that should only happen between a married man and a woman, which want to express their desire and love for one another and can accomplish this by being together as one. Sex was created for a married man and a woman, not children or separated adults or single people, but those adults that understand what love and desire and passion are. God created sex for a man and woman in order to show passion and desire and love for one another, to fulfill each other in all ways possible. God also created sex for a married man and woman as a way to conceive and have children. In the Bible, it states, but since sexual immortality is occurring, each man should have sexual relations with his wife only, and the woman with her husband only. The wife does not have authority over her own body, and neither does the man. They promise them to each other and therefore should remain with each other. To those who are unmarried, if they cannot control themselves, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. This is found in 1 Corinthians 7, verses 2 through 9. According to Carol, in her Discovery of Human Sexuality book, sexuality in humans is also grounded in a biological function emerging in each of us as we develop. It is expressed by cultures and through rules and about sexual contact, attitudes about moral and immoral sexuality, habits of sexual behavior, patterns of relationships between sexes, and more. All sexually active people make decisions about where, when, and whom they will engage in sexual activity or relationships with. The sexual nature of human beings is a unique relationship because many of our fellow humans are unique in the animal kingdom for the fact that we display complex sexual behaviors. We go outside of a normal realm where we are instinctually thinking of different rituals and rites, creating ideas, laws, customs, different fantasies, as well as our art and creating other ways of showing love or affection through a sexual relationship. And so in those ways we are thought to be unique in how we go about our sexual encounters. According to Arthur, she writes a book, The Truth About Sex. And according to her, she believes that sex, I love the quote that the little story that she talked about, how sex is like a can of Drano, because it was a wonderful product. Drano is, but if you don't follow the manufacturer's directions, then it could burn you, it could poison you, or erupt violently. It can cause a lot of problems. The same is true of sex, she says, and that is why so many are traumatized by sex instead of delighting in it as God intended. She says God formed us to know greater ecstasy than when a man and a woman literally merge into one flesh. Hormones, nerves, sensory receptors, and other specific physical characteristics are all part of God's divine plan and design for our pleasure and physical oneness and of marriage. An ecstasy beyond exquisite and a oneness that washes over you in a wave of passion and carrying you weightless to a sea of delight. Passion that loses consciousness of anything else. Exhaustion that leaves you spent, tired, worn out, drained of tension, but completely fulfilled in satisfaction. Sex has a beauty all its own and wonder of wonders as God had created it. I thought that that was profound. It explains a lot of different feelings and excitements that God intended for us to have, and yet still explains that this should be done with between a man and a woman, but gives us an insight that it wasn't just about creating life, but also for a sexual feeling for a man and a woman to be able to explicitly show each other those desires and those passions for one another. According to Winner, she writes a book on real sex, and she comes across more as gives some insight on personal experiences, much like the Arthur does. However, she she states this: sex is appropriate when husband and wife enter an institution that points them towards more of a familiar or domestic emotional and spiritual unity. But the one flesh of which Adam speaks is also overtly sexual, suggesting sexual intercourse, the only physical state other than pregnancy where it is hard to tell where one person's body stops and the other starts. So it's a very physical definition of where the sexuality or human sexuality is between a man and a woman. This is why, she states, this is why it is hard to discuss Christian sexual ethics. When it comes to sex, one cannot leave out the marriage. The no to sex outside the marriage seems arbitrary and cruel, apart from the Creator's yes to sex within marriage. Indeed, one can say that in Christians' vocabulary, the only real sex that happens in a marriage is the sex that goes on outside a marriage is not really sex at all, but it's only distorted or imitation. So even though we think that we may love that person or are showing that person how we feel, because there's not that unity, that familial unity and marriage, it's not actually a closeness or a healthy sexual relationship how it was intended. Instead, it's more of an imitational and just a demonstration of feelings, much like a one-night stand or a fling. Each one of these textbooks that we have discussed in this presentation, as well as what we're reading in class, have similar views about sex and marriage. They all explained or discussed how important it was to be a married couple, and that, as the Bible had discussed, between a man and a woman. They present them in different ways. Carol presents her views very scientifically and biologically and more like a textbook, whereas Winner and Arthur come across more as personal views and giving an explanation of how they felt or how experiences that they had had throughout their life and how they feel on a Christian point of view, as well as possibly an opposing point of view. They both explain why marriage is important to them and why marriage is important to a healthy relationship. The last thing that I wanted to come across or present is, I think that it's important to study sexuality and the research of healthy sexuality from both a Bible perspective as well as textbooks and research, physical and scientific. There are a lot of misconceptions and confusing thoughts about where sexuality should be and what is normal and what is acceptable. And so I think that it's important for us to, research and learn, why exactly do we have homosexuality? Why are there transgender? Why do we have feelings for one another? Why is so much of that going on? So that we can explicitly discuss that and find out more about it. I think that that's a definite positive in researching so that we can learn and get that instruction in order to help our youth. It's such a confusing time with sexuality being broadcasted everywhere that we need to be able to explicitly teach these youth how important it is to be in a marriage, what exactly love and desire and passion and what human healthy sexual feelings are, how they present themselves and what they would possibly feel like or look like in a healthy relationship. So I think it's important for us to know that in order to be able to discuss it and teach those that need it correctly or that are confused on it correctly. So I think that that is definitely a positive view in research. A con for possible research or looking into that or discussing sexual matters is arousal, leading to, just trying to find out, being inquisitive. It gives you different ideas of what is out there. And so it could possibly put ideas in your head. So those types of things, it does give you impure thoughts or impure directions because there are so many different topics under the heading of sexuality. So I think because of that, that could be definitely a con as far as when you're looking into the sexuality field or trying to discover any fields or topics throughout sexuality. Overall, healthy sexuality to me is the true love or devotion and passion that is between a married man and a woman. And they use these sexual encounters to explicitly express how they feel, their love, their devotion, the fact that they are a unity, a union that has been created together. And it's a way for them to have that closeness and that oneness that God explains to us that He has created for us, that He gives us so that we can be as one. And I think that we need that in order for us to continue a very solid, healthy human relationship. That sexual part, those feelings, the attractions, in order to make a marriage solid, as well as to make our sexuality healthy. We need to be able to explore with one another and be able to talk to each other and have communication open. Communication is a huge part of marriage, but I believe that it's a huge part of sexuality. You should be able to talk to your husband or your wife about your sexual needs or desires and how you together can get through those satisfying moments and be able to explicitly explore one another as God would expect us to. Like I said, as I had mentioned before, Adam brings up a very solid point and discusses that part about sexuality besides just a conception. So I think that God realized that how He created our bodies and how the desires that our bodies need in order for us to be able to feel that and be as one and to continue to think and feel as one in that unity, that we express each other and be able to be one in our sexuality as well. So I hope that the presentation is one that gives you information and meaning and lets you know exactly my point of view, or at least somewhat of an inside view of how I feel towards the healthy sexuality and what I'm so far getting from the books. Thank you.